So our next storyteller, to that end, is a resident here. So that's, him. I see that was a smooth segue, is what that was. So thank you. I'm not just the velvet jacket. So there you go. So our next storyteller, when I asked him to tell us about a time where he felt very much at home, he said hitchhiking from Buffalo to Ithaca, which is very popular thing to do. Everybody's trying to get out of one place, and they think the other place is better, but they're both dumps. Like they're both. One has Cornell, the other one has chicken wings. I don't know. Please welcome Jim Ross. Come on. Make sure you stay close to the microphone.
Okay. All right, look down a little bit.
A little closer.
All right. My girlfriend was pissed at me because I hadn't yet asked her to move in with me. And in a way, she was right. We were 22 years old. We'd been dating since junior year in college, and we just spent the most exotic, romantic summer vacation together, touring the game parks of East Africa. And, I wanted it too, and I understood fully the upside. The relationship was going great. We weren't college kids anymore, and, it was the logical next step. But the problem was, I didn't live across town in some cozy bachelor flat with all the mod cons supported by, my first gainful employment. I lived in the Congo in a cement block, tin-roofed teacher's accommodation at Boys Secondary School, where I was the Peace Corps volunteer English teacher. And in 1976, when this story takes place, the Congo was probably one of the most dangerous spots on the planet. It had Ebola, it had green monkey fever, later to be better known as AIDS. It had malaria, dysentery, homa, and the full cornucopia of tropical diseases for which Michelle had yet to acquire any resistance whatsoever. But more importantly, it also had roving bands of well-armed but underpaid soldiers who spent their time hassling and robbing anyone unfortunate enough to cross their paths. So it was not a place that a thoughtful, caring young man who had the physical and emotional well-being of his girlfriend anywhere near the forefront of his mind would have said simply, yeah, great idea, it's time. Why don't you come back and move in with me in the Congo? But, Michelle was anything but the R in relentless. She made a good argument. She'd gotten to Africa on her own, and she hadn't gotten sick yet, and, she was a formidable woman. And, that didn't really persuade me. The truth was that I wanted it too. And 22 years old, and, in love, what I wanted trumped what I knew better every time. So off we went from Kenya on the east coast of Africa all the way across Central Africa to the Congo in the west, and there settled into the Institute Tumbakunda Diazai in southwest Congo, a few miles from the Angola border and about a day's ride south of the capital. And there we began 7 months of absolute young person in love bliss. I taught school in the morning. She was writing a book. In the afternoon, we'd go walking on the savannah. In the evening, we'd walk to a nearby village, listen to the women sing a cappella under the stars. Occasionally, we'd climb a nearby hill and smoke a couple of joints before coming back to the teachers' accommodations and cooking whatever we had found to cook in the market that week. And then if we had some electricity, which we had about 4 hours a week, we'd plug in the shortwave radio and listen to the BBC World News broadcast before going to bed, getting up the next day and doing it all over again. And day after day, week after week, month after month, we just grew closer and closer until in the spring, we were planning our future together. Where do you want to live when my Peace Corps contract is up? What do you want to do? Life was a blank sheet of paper, and we were filling it in together. And then one evening, coming back from one of our sojourns, I flipped on the shortwave radio in time to hear the BBC announcer say that Congolese rebels, led by Cuban mercenaries, had crossed over from Angola into the Congo, overrun the mining center at Kolwezi, slaughtered all the mining engineers, and were reportedly heading on their way to the capital. We were right in their path. So I said to Michelle, we got to get out of here fast. And there were very few roads in that area, and only one that led to the capital. And it passed about 10 kilometers west of the school. So we packed a bag, hustled out to the road, got there about midnight, flagged down a truck, and by morning we were in the capital. First stop was the international airport, to see what's leaving and can we get on it. And there wasn't much. There were 2 flights a day still, one to Lagos in Nigeria, the other to Johannesburg. And but unfortunately, a lot of people wanted to get on them, and the price was $800 or the equivalent in Belgian francs, which we didn't have. We'd spent most of our hard currency getting from Kenya to the Congo. So time for plan B. Well, I figured the embassy must have some sort of emergency evacuation plan. So we went there, and sure enough, they did. And my name was on it, since I had a valid visa. But Michelle's wasn't, since she had entered the country somewhat informally by me paying off a border guard at the Rwanda border. So her name wasn't on the list, and as far as the embassy was concerned, she didn't have a seat out of Dodge. I was going to go back to that later if need be, but in the meantime, I thought it was time to come up, just in case, with a plan C. So there was a cafe attached to the embassy, and I went there to collect my thoughts and figure out what I could do with the local currency we had and how we could use it to get out before the rebels arrived. And I didn't come up with a whole lot. I figured we could go upriver a little ways and find a pirogue that would take us across to Brazzaville, and things like that. They were really shitty plans, and I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in them. But as I'm riffing, I realized that Michelle is not listening to me. And as a matter of fact, she hadn't said more than a few words since we left Tumba the night before. And while I knew she was frightened, and rightfully so, this was beginning to look like a little more than that, sort of like shock. But before I could focus on that and what it might mean in terms of getting us or her out, a Congolese embassy employee came into the cafe and started talking in French to another employee at a nearby table. And what he said was that there were 3 Europeans that had just been picked up on the street for filming in a prohibited area and had been taken away to the JNPR building. And the guy I was talking to said, yeah, it's probably one of the news teams come in to cover the war. There'll be a few more until they close the airport or the rebels get here. And that was it. They weren't going to do anything. But my antenna were out, and but just instinct told me that I should help these people. Maybe they can help us. It's probably a better idea than taking a leaky canoe across a crocodile and hippo-infested river. And what do I have to lose? So I said to Michelle, you stay here, and I'm going to check this out. I'll be right back. And she didn't say anything, but she looked me straight in the eye, and her eyes said very clearly, do not leave me here. But I had to. The JMPR was where the soldiers took you if they couldn't reach some financial accommodation out on the street. Every town had one. They were colloquially known as the shakedown shacks. And it's not a place you wanted to go, and it certainly wasn't a place I was going to take her. So I left her there, and off I went, and got to the JMPR. There was a soldier standing at the door, teenager really, in the JMPR uniform of black combat boots, jungle camo, aviator reflector sunglasses, and honking great AK-47. Intimidating looking young man. So I said to him, I'm here to see the 3 people you just picked up. And, I gave him some money, and he took me into a back room where, sitting on the floor, were 2 of the largest men I'd ever seen in my life and one of the tiniest women. And it turns out that they were a freelance news team that had come in from Beirut to cover the fighting. And they made the mistake of getting out of their vehicle and shooting some rolls of film before they got to their hotel. And they did it in front of some soldiers, and they got picked up and brought back to the shakedown shack. So I said to them, look, there's only one of them out there right now. The others have probably gone off to get instructions about what to do about you. And he's amenable to financial inducement. So if you've got some money, why don't you give it to me? I'll put it to good use. It's not going to be cheap. That camera equipment is obviously pretty expensive, and he's going to have to split whatever I give him with the 10 other guys who come back. But he's doable. So if you want to go, let's go. So the two big guys get up. They start lifting their camera equipment. But the reporter, she just stands there with her arms crossed across her chest, looking me up and down like I'm some sort of flim-flam man. And I say, look, ma'am, time's a waste, and there's one of them, he'll do a deal, but you got to do it now. Because when the other guys get back, they're going to take your camera equipment, they're going to search you all, they're going to find your money wherever you've hidden it, and then they're not going to let you go. So it's now or never. And still she didn't move. So then one of the big guys picked up an attaché case off the floor where she'd obviously been sitting on it, and he shoves it right in her gut. She almost doubled over. And she glares at him, he glares at her. He wins the stare-down contest. So she reaches inside her shirt, pulls out a key, opens the attaché case, takes out a manila envelope filled with $100 bills. And she gives it to me. So, okay. I go out, I take care of the guard, I get them out of there, I get them to their hotel, and then I go back to the Embassy Cafe to pick up Michelle. And she's sitting right where I left her, but if possible, she's looking even worse than she had a few hours before. Her lips are trembling, her face is splotchy, her eyes are red, and she's not moving. And I say, Michelle, come on, I got the money for the tickets, let's go. Not moving. So I touched her arm. Michelle, we gotta go. Not moving. So I finally start lifting her up. And for the first time, she looks me in the eyes and she says in a breaking voice, I wasn't sure you were coming back. And in that moment, I realized that I was the biggest jerk in the Western world, because that whole business about, what you want, trump what every time, I damn near got this woman killed. I was in love with her, she trusted me, she'd followed me clear across Africa, and now she was practically comatose. But, I had no time really to, deal with recriminations, because my internal clock was going, tick-tock, tick-tock. You do not know when the rebels are going to get here. You don't know how close they are. And you got to get her out of town now. So off we went to the airport, where the crowd, if possible, was twice as large as it had been that morning. And now, instead of being a pushing and shoving scrum, it was a full-fledged riot. People were kicking, punching, using their luggage as battering rams. So I said to Michelle, hold on to my belt and do not let go. And in that kind of two-man conga line, I dove into the crowd and with youth and desperation fought our way to the front, where the ticket price was now $1,200, American dollars or Belgian francs. Fortunately, I had it. I reached in the front of my pants and pulled out a wad of $100 bills, which I had liberated from the news team. I paid for the tickets. I got her on the plane. I gave her the rest of the $100 bills, since the plane was only going to take her to Lagos, and she had to get home from there on her own. And then I stood on the tarmac and waited till I saw it take off. Years later, when our sons were going through that transition period from boyhood mischief to testosterone-fueled adolescent mayhem, I sat him down for a fatherly talk. I said, look, boys, I'm never going to ask you not to do anything foolish or stupid, because I know apples don't fall far from the tree. But if you're in it together, I want you to have each other's backs. And if either one of you hears that tiny little voice whisper, no, this isn't a good idea, it's too dangerous, don't do it, then please, 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 please listen. Because once upon a time, before you were born, I did something really, really stupid and dangerous. And I heard that little voice, and I didn't pay attention. And but for a timely piece of totally undeserved luck, neither one of you would be here. And when I think of that and the possibility that one of you could do the same and not get so lucky, it's a thought I can't bear. Thank you.